The 49ers just sent a serious message to the rest of the field with their Sunday night victory versus the Chicago Bears. This team is getting better and better every week and peaking at the right time. And this is 100% a team that nobody would want to play in the playoffs, especially if they can get one more win and make the playoffs run through Levi's Stadium. We're going to break that all down for you on this episode of Niners Digest. My name is Ethan Galbraith. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because we noticed over 97% of you haven't quite done so yet. It's free to subscribe. Make sure you do so you don't miss any Niners updates. Over 500 of you have subscribed though, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world. But make sure to subscribe if you haven't because we're going to give you everything we got, including a breakdown of this instant classic that was 49ers versus Bears. Niners 42, Bears 38. It came down to the final play. You couldn't have written a better script for a primetime matchup between two NFC juggernauts. Kyle Shanahan versus Ben Johnson, two offensive geniuses going at it. Shanahan comes out on top. Brock Purdy versus Caleb Williams, pick number 1 versus pick number 262, and 262 comes out victorious. They dueled like no one else. It was an amazing game, and I think that part of the serious message that the Niners sent is that they are extremely resilient. It's been like that all season with the next man up mentality with everybody, and they had to deal with that during this game as well. I'll talk more about that later. But it starts, of course, with Brock Purdy. Part of this serious message that I was talking about is that Brock Purdy is continuing to get better and better. He's stacking great games on great games. I've been loving that phrase recently, and Brock Purdy has been doing it. We talked last week about how his game versus the Colts might be his best game ever. It probably is. This game rivals it too. After the first play, which was a pick 6 for the Bears, he diced up that defense. He got whatever he wanted, and props to the rest of the offense helping play their part. The offensive line dealt with some injuries. They only got Purdy sacked one time. They gave him time to throw the ball, and it paid off. It paid dividends. The receivers got open. Ricky Pearsall especially stepped up in George Kittle's absence. Juwan Jennings, he's always there as well. So Purdy, it was a team effort, but Brock Purdy just lit up the Bears defense. And I talked previously before this game how the Bears have the highest turnover margin going into this game, going into this week. And yes, they got the first turnover on the first play of the game, but Purdy never gave them another opportunity to get one. He did throw one in the end zone, but it was called back for a penalty, so that doesn't count. We're not going to give him that one. So Purdy didn't give him opportunities to raise that turnover margin again, and that ended up being the difference because it was less than a touchdown game after all. So props to Purdy. He's continuing to play great, and there's no reason to think that he's going to regress. Yes, he's playing some difficult defenses the rest of the way, but they're closer and closer to playing all those defenses at home. And Levi's Stadium was rocking versus the Bears. That's going to make a difference. But I want to talk about the run game as well, because a few weeks ago, I talked about how the Niners run game averaging less than 4 yards a carry, it might just be a case of it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do with what you can. But now for the second game in the row, the Niners have not just broken that 4 yards a carry threshold, they have surpassed it. Tonight, or Sunday night, was the best example of this. They hit nearly 6 yards a carry. Christian McCaffrey went over 6 yards a carry for 140 yards and a touchdown. Arguably his best game of the season and one of his best games in a Niners uniform. And that is just a really good sign, again, especially because the offensive line dealt with a Trent Williams injury that I will talk about. And regardless of that, they played great. Brian Robinson Jr. only got 4 carries in this game, but he made the most of it. He ran for 5.5 yards a carry. Sky Moore even got a first down's worth of yards on 1 carry. So, and Purdy, of course, scrambled for 28 yards and those 2 touchdowns, which were super cool to watch. So the Niners run game is showing life at the most important time. Again, part of the message I was alluding to that they sent. The Niners are getting better and better, and that even includes aspects of their offense, which has been high-powered all season, that have kind of been inconsistent all season. And now, they've now put together 2 great running performances on top of 2 great passing performances against defenses that are not the worst in the league. They're no pushovers. So it's something to keep an eye on, especially against a division rival in Seattle coming up, that to see if the Niners run game can make it 3 games in a row and carry some crazy heavy momentum going into the playoffs. Again, McCaffrey played great. It was really impressive to watch. I think that I've talked about it, about how the Niners run game has been a little inconsistent and at times disappointing, especially when you have one of the best running backs in football in your backfield. But last night was not one of those examples. He played great. The receiver room as well. Of course, Brock Purdy's putting up those numbers. He's got to be throwing it to somebody, and he threw it to a handful of people. I'll tell you that much. McCaffrey, of course, is involved as always. Ricky Pearsall came back from injury, and he played great. 5 catches for 85 yards. That's what you kind of want to see from him on a consistent basis should he be healthy. And he played great. He had the injury scare after his first catch. Didn't matter. He played lights out football. Jake Tonjes is the X factor from this game. There were questions about how the Niners receiving room, the receiver core was going to play out without George Kittle, who's been also stacking great games on great games recently, but he didn't play this game. Jake Tonjes stepped up and played amazing football. Maybe he had a vengeance because I think he was robbed of a touchdown in Indianapolis, but he got his touchdown this week, and he added on 6 other catches for 60 total yards. He played great in Kittle's absence. And then Jauan Jennings, come on. You got to just expect this from him at this point. He played great, including the game-winning touchdown. Jauan is always going to be there for Purdy and this offense, and he showed it again against the Bears. Demarcus Robinson also showed up. Kendrick Bourne had a great catch. Kyle Juszczyk with a very nice touchdown catch on a Purdy scramble drill. And Brian Robinson Jr. contributing as well. Full team effort. No Kittle, no problem. Of course, it'll be interesting to see if George Kittle can come back for the Seahawks game, but Jake Tonjes is holding it down for the Niners tight end room. So overall, the serious message on this offense is that they're continuing to get better and they're playing solid defenses, great teams. The Bears are, before this game, they were competing still for the number 1 seed in the NFC. So they knocked down one opponent. Now they got one more for the 1 seed, and that's the Seahawks. But of course, you can't talk about this game without the injury woes, because Trent Williams did leave early in this game with a hamstring injury. And Adam Schefter was talking about this today on the Pat McAfee show, saying, quote, Trent went out of the game last night and didn't come back. I think it will be tough for him to make it back on a short week. Of course, as a reminder, the Niners will be playing the Seahawks on Saturday, not Sunday, for the number 1 seed in the NFC at Levi Stadium. So it is a shorter week for the Niners. Again, 2 straight short weeks is pretty difficult at the end of the season. The silver lining, of course, is you get both games at home. But it'll be interesting to see if Trent Williams will be good to go for this game because, again, that's a walking Hall of Famer that you have on your offensive line. You're always better with him in that lineup. But the Niners' run game and pass game, as you could tell, did not suffer because the offensive line still played great football. And that's in part because of Trent Williams' substitute, Austin Pleasants, who filled in for Trent Williams. And here are his statistics from this game. Overall, he did give up the 1 sack, but coming off the bench for a Hall of Famer, this is a pretty solid performance from him filling in. So Jake Tonjes and Austin Pleasants, both crucial X factors filling in for star players on the offense. And the offense didn't skip a beat because of it. So it's the epitome of next man up. The Niners have been doing it all year. And you saw it in this game in real time with Austin Pleasants coming in during the game and Jake Tonjes starting for George Kittle. So the Niners nothing much has really changed, to be honest with you. They're running the same schemes. They're continuing next man up. What's the difference? Well, the difference is that they now have an insane amount of momentum. They are riding high. So my final thoughts are this. Well, I'll end with this first because talking about George Kittle and Trent Williams' injury. George Kittle, Schefter went on to continue that George is pushing to play this Saturday and he has a chance to be back. And as I said before, Trent went out. It's going to be tough for him to come back. So George Kittle, there could be a sign that he could come back. But again, next man up. The Niners have embodied that all season. And now with all this momentum, my final thoughts are this. I think they perfectly captured it with this tweet here. Of course, there's a picture from the game last night. Dub City. And of course, the mayor of Dub City, his name is Fred Warner. There's been rumors about him coming back. He was at the game last night on the sidelines. Looks like he really wants to get out there and play. So that's still up in the air. That's in the background. But the message is clear. The Niners have not changed who they are. Despite all the injuries, they've maintained next man up. You saw it in real time against the Bears, and they came out with a win because of it. They now have an insane amount of momentum going into their final regular season game that determines the number 1 seed, at home, by the way. And this should not be a team that anybody wants to play in the playoffs. Historically speaking, that has been the case under Kyle Shanahan, and that should still be the case this year. The Niners are riding high, and it's clearly doesn't matter who they put out there. This is a really good team. And the offense, yes, there's questions around the defense. I'll talk more about that in a future video. But the offense is formidable. They are dangerous. When you got this guy playing like an MVP down the stretch of the season, when teams might run out of gas and they're on a full tank, it seems like, nobody wants that in the playoffs. So we'll keep you updated on injury updates with Kittle, Trent Williams, or anything else that develops throughout the week, and looking ahead to the Seahawks matchup on Saturday. But for now, that's all for this episode of Niners Digest. Thank you again so much for watching. And again, thank you so much for 500 subscribers. It means a lot. But for now, my name is Ethan Galbraith, and we will see you in the next video.